top story this hour, supporters of former U.S. President Donald Trump gathered outside Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate in Palm Beach, Florida on Thursday night, waving pro-Trump flags and singing patriotic songs. Earlier Thursday, Trump was indicted by a Manhattan grand jury, prosecutors and defense lawyers said, making him the first former U.S. president to face a criminal charge and jolting his bid to retake the White House next year.
While I support Donald Trump and I support his run for presidency, I also want people to understand that this is an American issue. It rises above whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, whether you think Joe Biden is competent or you don't. Of course, you know I don't think he's competent. But the point is that if we don't, if we don't stand up for what's right, then we're no better than Venezuela. We're no better than Cuba. We're no better than Afghanistan or any of these countries in which it's, or China for that matter. So I'm here as an American, and I support our democracy.
The same as all the other stuff. He's falsely accused for the last 6 years. It's terrible. It's ruining our country. It's dividing our country. He was, the election was stolen from him in 2020. I totally believe that. Great Lynn Wood, fix 2020 or bust. And that's what's going to happen here.
Well, Donald Trump has reacted to the development, calling the indictment political persecution and election interference at the highest level in history. He denies any wrongdoing and adds that the so-called witch hunt will backfire on President Joe Biden and radical Democrats in 2024. The former president is expected to surrender to authorities next week, after which the content of the indictment will be made public.
Well, Americans speaking to the Associated Press had a range of reactions to the news. Some said that if the former president did something wrong, he must face justice. Others said the investigation was politically motivated.
It's not a witch hunt. You do something wrong, you should be just like everybody else and have to deal with it. I have a feeling he's going to probably get a really light sentence, but you know, that's just the way it goes. That usually happens when somebody's influential or has a lot of money. So. But yeah, overall, good news today. I just got some good news.
I think that people should focus on better topics and better issues that we have in the social climate, like people struggling on the streets, affordable housing, education, things that really matter to Americans. I think that there's a lot of news around this, a lot of buzz when it comes to politics and the new election coming up, but we have people struggling right now that I think we should spend a little more time focusing on.
Just think it's stupid, it's going to not get anywhere, and it will come back to be bad on the Democrats. I mean, maybe the Republicans will indict some Democrats, and it just, doesn't go anywhere. It's just kind of stupid, tit for tat.
It's a Democrats-run state, so what you can expect? It's a witch hunt. So I don't think it's going to be fair.
Well, I kind of expected it because I saw in the news it was probably going to happen. I think it actually gives him an advantage going into the 2024 election. And I think that it also shows that there's been a continuous witch hunt ever since 2016. And all of the allegations have been proven false. I think that he should fully cooperate and show his innocence.
Bragg in Manhattan should have other things to be looking at other than hush money payments to a former prostitute. So I just think if they're going to go after him, they could do better than that. Well, I think it's a shame. I think if Biden had any guts, he would say, let's stop this nonsense. I'm hoping that whoever's president in 2024 would say, let's stop this nonsense. I mean, I'm sick of the whole thing. I'm sick of the Trump investigations. I'm sick of the Biden investigations. Let's get on with real problems and real issues and stop all this nonsense.
And Arise U.S. correspondent Eric Ham joins us now for more on the story. Eric, good to see you. Please walk us through the latest on this breaking story.
Well, what we know so far is that the grand jury has, in fact, come down with this indictment of Donald Trump. Now, in the United States, grand juries in many locations are actually sealed and secret. So we don't know the details of what's in this indictment. What our sources are telling us, however, is that there are at least 34, you heard that right, 34 charges in this indictment. And so it's also important to note that Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan District Attorney that is bringing this indictment against Donald Trump, has also secured a successful guilty verdict against Donald Trump's organization, the Trump Organization. And that was an organization that was deemed a criminal enterprise. So if there's anyone who knows the intricacies, the details, the depths of the organization, where the bodies are buried, where money is going, who is it going to? It would, of course, be Alvin Bragg. But again, it still puzzles many people as to how, in fact, he is going to secure a conviction, because many see a lot of the charges that perhaps are in this indictment would be federal in nature. And so the question, of course, is how do you go from a federal crime to a state violation? That is what many are waiting to see as this indictment is unsealed. And we're expecting, of course, to learn more when a negotiated arraignment is made of Donald Trump, which is expected to be possibly next Tuesday in Manhattan.
Now, I know you've already said there's several charges within this particular indictment, but there are also several investigations apart from this involving the former president. Now, where do they stand at the moment, and could we expect another indictment at some point?
You know, that's a really good question, because there have been those who have said this indictment should have not come first. And also, just earlier today, a major media organization's editorial board actually said that this should not even be the indictment against a former U.S. sitting president if there's going to be such an indictment. And of course, it is those other investigations, criminal investigations, that actually could pose the biggest threat and danger to Donald Trump. We do know that in Georgia, there's still an ongoing investigation into Donald Trump interfering in the election, where we're learning, of course, that there are two recorded phone calls of Donald Trump attempting to try to overturn the election in the state of Georgia. We're still waiting on that indictment. In fact, the Fulton County District Attorney in that case, Fani Willis, has said that indictments are imminent. Of course, she said that more than a month ago. So we're still waiting to see what's going to happen there. Now, we have gotten a sneak peek into those indictments when we heard from the foreman of that grand jury, who says that there will be no surprise about who is indicted, suggesting that perhaps Donald Trump is one of those individuals. And also, Donald Trump himself has already begun to try to dismantle that grand jury, with his lawyers saying that the prosecutor in that case, Fani Willis herself, should be removed. The other case that is barreling down on Donald Trump that also could pose potential dangers to the former president is this federal investigation that is looking at a plethora of issues, including Donald Trump absconding with national security documents, as well as looking into his role in the January 6th investigation.
Well, thank you, Eric. Can you share with us how exactly this indictment works in terms of what might happen next?
Well, what happens next is, now that a bill has been made, and the bill is basically where the grand jury has come out and said that based on the information that we have heard, we believe that this individual has potentially committed crimes and should go to trial for these crimes. So now Donald Trump will turn himself in to the Manhattan District Attorney's office. The negotiations of that is expected to take place on Tuesday. He will be arraigned. The charges against him will be read in court. He will be fingerprinted. His mugshot will be taken. He will be processed. It's highly unlikely, however, that he will actually spend much time in jail if, in fact, this actually happens in jail. This could happen inside of a courtroom. This could happen outside of the purview of the press, the media, and others. But all of this is expected to take place on one day. Donald Trump will probably be released on his own recognizance. And then, of course, the matters of actually settling on a trial date or a negotiation on a potential settlement will occur after that.
Now, of course, everybody's speculating about 2024. What impact do you think this will have on Donald Trump's candidacy for the White House?
Well, we have to look at this in two different areas, looking at it from the primary and also from the general. In the primary, this actually helps Donald Trump because Donald Trump is still running to become the Republican nominee for president. So with his base of ardent supporters, already Donald Trump has separated himself from the pack, and he is leading head and shoulders above any other closest competitors in the race to become the Republican nominee. So that this is actually helping him, not hurting him. Where this will certainly have detrimental impact on him is if, in fact, he does become the nominee in the general election, because in the United States, in order to secure the presidency, you have to win overwhelmingly independent voters. And more importantly, you have to win suburban women. And these indictments are going to scare away those independent voters and those suburban women, which could see Donald Trump actually lose if he actually gets to a general election.
Well, thank you, Eric. When we were listening earlier to some reactions from Americans, some were dismissive, saying that this is more of a reach and that, if they really had something on the former president, it wouldn't be something as minor as this. I mean, just, quoting the person here. So would you say that this case generally is a bit of a reach?
Well, based on what we know so far, and we know very little because all of the information is secret. So we don't know the full details and the full scope of the charges that are being brought. But based on what we know, it could be a bit of a reach. But we also have to remember, it was Donald Trump's own Justice Department that actually convicted Michael Cohen, Donald Trump's own fixer, in this very case. Now, that was at the federal level. Where this becomes very interesting is how they tie this to the state level. And that's where, of course, this all becomes very complex.
All right, Eric Hammer, Rise U.S. analyst, thank you so much for your input today.